If I never hear this phrase again, it would be too soon. Hey everybody, my name is April and welcome back to my channel. I'm going over my July wrap up today because I read some interesting things, some things that really grossed me out, like completely, and we learned a lot about ourselves in the process of that. So let's just get started and see what the hell I read this month. The first book I read was actually a buddy read with Hannah, and this was Thieves and Monsters by Cleo Evans. This is a Three Fates Mafia book, so there's fantasy creatures, and also they're in a mafia. I thought this book sounded cool because it is a White Shoes novel, and the three men actually shift into one creature, and that creature is a three-headed Cerberus. So it's like a three-headed dog. And yeah, the basic gist of this is that she's a thief and she's trying to steal something from the men and she gets caught. So they set up this contract that she will be their plaything for a week and they will let her go. And boy, do they get into things really quickly. I actually gave this 3 stars. I thought the premise was really cool, but it just started to get very repetitive in the spice category of this. And there was a lot of fluids. There was a lot of like unshifted adult times, and it was a weird one. It wasn't terrible. Did I finish it? I did finish it. Hannah and I both, I don't think we really liked this one. It had a lot of potential, but basically we both wanted more from the plot in this because once they got the mafia stuff going, there was like action and killing going on, and then it would just be this stupid like ice cream date. So it wasn't the greatest. We ended up giving it 3 stars. I don't know if I'll read more of them, but I love the cover. It was very spicy, so if you're looking for spicy, read this. But other than that, I thought it was just, I don't know, it was okay. After that, I read a very sweet historical romance called What's a Duke Got to Do With It by Christina Britton. I have enjoyed getting to know Christina Britton's writing this month. I really think she writes a friend group really well. Like, it's reminding me of like Tessa Dare's friend groups or Sarah McLean's friends groups. Katrina is embroiled in a scandal through no fault of her own. And this is kind of like a friends to lovers type thing. They knew each other in the past. He needs money, she has it, but she needs a reputation. You know, that kind of story. I really liked it because both of these characters are very cinnamon roll-ish. They're very sweet characters. And yeah, I just fall in love with Christina Britton's writing and the charm that she has with her books. The beginning of this book took a little while to find its footing, but around the 50% mark, I was hooked. So ultimately, I gave this 4 stars. Then I read this weird little book called Crazy as a Loon, and this is by Haley Edwards. Oh man, this was a real treat. It was a real treat. Think Golden Girls meets Supernatural, because that's exactly what this is. You have these old ladies who are all friends and they're all witch hunters basically, and they are notorious witch hunters, but now they're in their golden years of life, so they're still part of the guild, but they're given all the like menial tasks. Like, they're trying to keep all the pixies out of the church's garden so that way the church can still have their like bake sale every year or whatever. Right away, the humor gets you in the beginning of this, and it is so funny in the beginning. And then it becomes like this whole murder mystery plot with some children going missing or even dying at this summer camp run by some friends of theirs. And so they try to figure out what the heck is going on at this summer camp, and it is just a fun adventure. I really liked it. It becomes a little bit more serious towards the end, but I absolutely loved this and I want more. This is not a romance. I forgot to say that. This is not a romance, but there is a teensy bit of romance in it. And it's just crazy. I mean, one of the ladies' husband, Soul, is trapped in a Billy Bass like, singing fish in the house. So she wants to like watch TV together. She's got like Velcro all over her house so she can like put him everywhere so she can talk to him. It is so funny. It is so funny. And honestly, please read this, even if you like are a romance fan and you only read romance. This was just a treat. It was an absolute treat. Last month I read 2 books from the Make Games series, and that was both Rejection and Possession, which was Kingston's book, also Alex's book. The Make Games has been such a fun time reading with Maggie and Kim and Hannah and Kristen and a lot of other people on the Discord and the Hideaway. This has just been a real fun series to read with friends because it is so ridiculous. The one-liners are great. I mean, it's just fantastic. I ended up liking Kingston's book a lot more than I did Alex's book, only because in Alex's book, you don't get a lot of Alec. And I don't know why the authors chose to do that, but maybe we'll figure it out. I'm actually reading the 4th book right now. I had to put it down to film this video, and I want to get back into it because it's Caleb's book. And I'm just a sucker for this priest, okay? I'm a sucker for this dirty talking priest. I can't help it. After that was a DNF, and I'm so sad about it. It was The Rebel King by Gina L. Maxwell. This is the 2nd book in a series duology, I don't really know, about Fae taking over Las Vegas and this kingdom. In the 1st book, you have I forget what his name is, but he's basically the king of Las Vegas, and there's a one-night stand situation going on, and then they have to get it annulled. However, the farther that she gets away with them, the more he starts to die. So it's this whole thing. And in the 2nd one is actually the brother and one of the plucky friends, and I loved their relationship together. In fact, I really loved watching them 2 together. However, the reason why I DNF'd it is because at some point in this book, there becomes a talk of a pandemic and then a lot of explaining of like militia groups that started up in the United States that were the fall of things. And honestly, I just don't want to read about that. It probably would have been a very small portion of the book, but I just couldn't. In the beginning part of it, there was a lot of like history explaining things, a lot of exposition. So I DNF'd this around the 34% mark. Unfortunately, I don't want to read about pandemic stuff or anything really relating to real world times because I read to escape that, okay? So after that sad DNF, I needed to pick me up. And I knew the exact book that would do it, and it is Mistletoe by Kimberly Leming. Oh man, I just adore Kimberly Leming's writing. It's so comedic from the very first page. What it comes down to is that this is a teeny tiny book. However, it is hot, it is funny, and it is incredibly sweet, all rolled up into one. I mean, Kimberly Leming really knows how to write this cozy, sweet fantasy that is also spicy and hot, and it's great. This is with like a fox demon and the daughter of a blacksmith, and there's a talking sword, and you just gotta read it. I don't think I can do any justice describing it. Just pick it up, okay? It's great. So after that delightful book, I read a pretty damn terrible one. This is The Black Devil, and I think what the tagline is, Infernal Affairs, and I love the pun. I love the pun, and I love the covers of these. This is like a whole series with these cat people, and I'm just picturing like Puss in Boots, but like in gritty, dark times, and all these books are male, so I was like, okay, this sounds interesting to me, right? And really, I wanted to read this 3rd book because I think this is the most majestic of the covers, but the synopsis says you have to read them in order. So we started with this book, and Maggie read this with me, bless her heart. I would like to formally apologize to Maggie because this was not good. In fact, it was downright gross. It is just not good in any way. And I know you voluntarily read this with me, Maggie, but I'm sorry that I even brought it to your attention. So y'all know I get curious about this shit, and I just had to know what goes on in this book. But basically, you have an alpha and omega situation. So this is an omega-verse with male cats. There are no female cats in this universe from what I could tell. You have the Toms, who are the alphas, and they kind of run the show. And then you have hairless cats are basically sex slaves in this world. They're collared, they have no rights. And another rich Tom approaches the hero Tom, who is like a private investigator type person, that he needs his hairless cat to go to the farm upstate because he's running away from something, you know, some kind of investigation. And the farm upstate is like a sex trafficking place for other hairless cats to basically be turned into, it's like a breeding camp for them, where they're literally chained and bred until they die. Our hero is supposed to be taking this poor cat to this place, and he does it for money, right? He needs money, which you can kind of tell by the conversation is that he's really not gonna actually do this, but I don't know. Is he? I didn't finish the story, so we don't know. Anyways, not 20 minutes down the road, they stop at a rest stop. Okay, they stop at a rest stop, and they get it on, okay? And it is the most degrading and disgusting sex scene that I've ever read, honestly. There's the use of a phrase that has truly grossed me out. If it was once, I could get over it, but they said several times. And then again, it was just the most degrading, sort of violent coupling that I just could not abide by. This book, at least I learned something from it. I learned what my hard limits were, and it is this degradation kink that I just cannot get into, as well as this phrase. I don't ever want to see it in a book again. It's too bad because again, this is another situation where the covers for this series, fan-fucking-tastic, but not anything else. That's it. And after that book, I needed a win, honestly. I needed a win, so I read my first Mafia books, and it is Mafia Mistress and Mafia Darling by Mila Finelli. I have, again, never read Mafia's books before, but honestly I had a really good time with these. They were a lot of action, a lot of spice, and a lot of fun. The only thing I can say about this is, again, it had degradation in it. I'm not a huge fan of degradation at all. I've learned this about myself this month. This was a learning month. And also the hero comes on extremely strongly, and there's a huge age gap between them. It was a lot for me, but the second book had a lot more action, and I really loved that from it. So I think if the first book had a lot more plot, a little less spice, and the second book just was a little bit longer with the action part of it, I would have really liked it. So I do plan on reading books 3 and 4, absolutely. It's not following the same couple, so I think I'll enjoy it even more. Not that I didn't like the couple, it just, they were okay to me. I more so loved this family and the plot surrounding them. So really looking forward to getting into the rest of them. I gave both of these books a 3-star. I thought it was pretty good intro to Mafia for me, and I'm looking forward to reading more. And after that, I read A Loving Scoundrel by Joanna Lindsay. This one I read with Crystal for our monthly read-along to the Mallory Anderson series. We're on book 7. In August, we're reading book 8. And this was another win for me. This is 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. This is with Jeremy, and he meets Danny, who is a girl in disguise as a boy because she is a pickpocket on the streets. So Jeremy kind of hires Danny for a job. She was found on the streets as a child through a very bloody and gruesome tragedy and a crime. And she doesn't really remember any of her family or anything like that. So she invents her name Danny, that kind of thing. She's lived as a pickpocket all her life. And seeing the transformation of her going from, you know, this street slums urchin to this lady, gentrified lady, was really interesting. It kind of reminded me of the Princess Diaries in a way. I don't remember a whole lot of this book, but I remember really loving it. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's one of the better ones from the series because it really did focus in on the relationship of Jeremy and Danny. Danny doesn't hold back either, and I really love, again, a stronger heroine in my books. So I just really loved the relationship between these two, and I think it is, again, one of the better books from this series. So the next book, again, I read another arc. This is from Juliet Long, and it is How to Tame a Wild Rogue. Now, this is book 6. I didn't realize that when I requested this, that this was part of a very long-standing series, but I knew Juliet Long was a pretty good historical romance writer, and I wanted to read it anyways, so I did. I will say, I think you should read the earlier books before this one, because as a new person coming into this world, most of this book is spent on every other character other than the main characters, and like a good 60% of it is spent on other characters. You're in their heads. It has a lot of head hopping between characters, between the 2 female owners of this inn, and then even the footman and the maid and the cook, I think it was too. Just a lot of the other characters, and you're like, get back to the main couple. Because how the main couple meets is Daphne is actually shimmying out her window on some bed sheets trying to escape the place that she's at, and she encounters Lorcan, who is just like on the street watching her, like going, what the heck is this lady doing? And then they both kind of seek refuge at the inn because there's this huge storm going on. I would have really liked most of this book, instead of being in the other characters' heads, to be spent on Daphne and Lorcan getting to know each other, because Lorcan is a pirate, and that really intrigued me as well, but you don't get any of that. He also, I guess, you met him in previous books. So it was just a lot of this, I feel like I'm missing out on something type thing, so don't. The book itself was beautifully written. It has incredible banter in it. I highlighted quite a bit of things in this book, but its downfall was just that not enough time was spent with the main characters for me. The last 30% of this book, fantastic. Loved it. Loved it. I just wished it was more so in the beginning part. I did end up giving this 4 stars. So even though it seemed like I didn't like the book, I did really like the book. It just, again, wanted a little bit more from it. And then I read Trader Witch finally. I have been wanting to read this since the Once Upon a Readathon with Hannah. Hannah suggested this, and I was like, I need to read that because it's what I choose, and it's with pirates. And man, I should have gotten to it sooner. This was really, really enjoyable. This is a romance, but very plot heavy in this first book. In fact, you don't get any spice in it at all in this first book. So just putting that out there. However, I didn't feel like it was missing at all. The Lunar Witch in this is framed for some murders, and she's on the run. And she seeks refuge with this ship of pirates. And the pirates know something that she doesn't, which is that all of them, these 5 pirates, including one more, are her mates. So they're all her mates. She does not know this entire time, and they don't tell her. So she is very wary of these people, and she doesn't plan to stay with them, but she's trying to solve the murder mystery to clear her name. So there's a lot of incredible banter in this book. Of course, you have all the different personalities, like some shifters and a fae and a seer, and then some vampires and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different paranormal creatures that I really loved. And of course you have one of the, one of her mates really doesn't want to be her mate and that kind of thing. And then you have the soft one. Please read this series. It's really, really good. And I can't wait to get to more relationship building in the next books. I will say the one thing that I didn't like about this book, it has a type of cliffhanger that I hate, which is where the author just decides to not wrap anything up and hit a giant pause button. And I really can't stand that type of cliffhanger. I mean, give me some, at least a teensy bit of closure with having this overarching story that you continue on, but whatever. It was still really enjoyable, and I definitely want to get to the next one. And I finished off my month with 2 more arcs that actually just came out as well. The first one being The 100 Loves of Juliet by Evelyn Skye. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. You have Helene, who is getting divorced from a terrible person, and she escapes to Alaska to write her first novel. She encounters the hero in this tiny Alaskan town, and right away she's like, I know you. And what she thinks he is the character she's been dreaming up since she was a little girl. And she's like, oh my God, here he is in real life. He has the same scar and he has the same hair and he twirls his coffee cup the same way. And so she approaches him and is like, oh, do I know you from somewhere? And he's like, no, crazy lady, get out of my face. She doesn't let up, so he's like, I gotta go feed my dog even though he doesn't own one. And he leaves the cafe where they're at. And then there's a scene of him in the truck going, oh my God, it's her, she's back again. And he does know her. So you kind of unravel what that's all about through the book. There's like a snowstorm, they get trapped together type of thing, and then you kind of learn more about each other. So I really enjoyed this arc. I do think it was a little bit slow moving, slow going. It's also contemporary, which you all know is not my jam, but I still ended up giving it 4 stars. I had a good time reading it. I do think it was a beautiful love story, and I'm glad it wasn't the tragedy that Romeo and Juliet actually is, but yeah, I really liked it. And then my last book of the month was Taste Like Shikar by Nisha Sharma. This again just came out as well. And I just loved this book. Nisha Sharma writes incredible comedy, like honestly. She wrote Dating Dr. Dill previously, and there was only really one thing that I didn't like about that. It was like somebody named their penis and just started having a conversation with it. I don't like that in that book, but everything else was great. And in this, you have Bobby and Benjamin. And they're at odds with each other because Benjamin almost single-handedly ruined her career like a year ago. And so ever since then, there has been this enemies contention between them. But that all kind of gets thrown out the door when they are forced to work together because their best friends are getting married. And Bobby is going to be the wedding planner and Benjamin is going to be the chef for the food. I loved the mini plot of whoever is sabotaging the wedding, because throughout this whole thing, somebody is sabotaging the wedding. I thought it was really fun and interesting, like just mini side plot of this book. But what I absolutely adored about this is just the family and the culture that Nisha Sharma shows the reader in this book. It really reminded me of a friend of mine getting married and how much I loved that experience, like getting to experience that with her. And I love the aunties. I love the food. This book made me so freaking hungry. I wanted to eat everything. And again, I just laughed a lot through this whole story. I thought it was just such a cute little rom-com, and it was a perfect ending to the crazy month of reading that I had, because damn, I really needed a win at the end here. This book I gave 4 stars as well, and I ended it out pretty solid. So those are all the books that I read for July. A lot of hits and some incredibly terrible misses. But hey, look at me. I'm still here. I'm still reading and having a good time. So let me know, what was your favorite book last month? If you've read any of these, let me know as well what you thought of them. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.